So I read the next the next 20 pages of the Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and so in this he is continuing that the argument that he made in the previous passage, um, that there is a very strong cultural heritage aspect of success and of events that happen in general in life. So he in this passage he gives the example of the Korean air flight, and he begins with a specific crash of an airplane, the Korean air flight 801. So he begins with the basic situation. The airplane was in good condition. The weather was bad, but it wasn't too bad, and so the captain was trying to bring the plane onto the ground, but they couldn't see the runway. So alarms began to go off as they got closer to the ground, and the flight engineer suggested to the captain that they should go back up in the air and then try again, and this time maybe they could see the ground, the runway. Uh, so the captain first time says no, but then things seem to get worse. So then the flight engineer suggests the same thing again, and this time the captain says, okay, let's try it. But right before they're able to try it, uh, in the midst of all that confusion, the airplane crashes headfirst into a mountain, and almost everyone on the airplane dies. Uh, and in the 80s and 90s, the Korean Airlines had a very bad reputation of of airline crashes, and later investigators found out that this was a lot due to the fact that they were undertrained, underpaid of pilots, and that all the proper safety protocols weren't even met. And but then the airline, the Korean airline, they soon realized that they had a problem, and this is very key to understand that there is a problem, and to understand that there's a cultural aspect to the problem. And following 1999, they had a perfect safety record. They cleared up all of the problems. They realized what they were doing wrong, and they made the wrongs right. And and since then they've been a very successful airline, and they haven't returned to that reputation that they had before. And Gladwell says that even though crashes, for in this example, are often seen as individual events because of individual catastrophes, because of individual mistakes, right? So, for example, many might think that it's just because of the pilot was being careless, and because of that, the airplane crashed. But what Gladwell argues here is that it's not, in fact, just one cause that leads to an airplane crash, for example. It's many things that accumulate over time, and that accumulation of in this case it could be bad weather, tired pilots, new or unfamiliar airports, crew members who just recently started working together. All of these different factors, they accumulate, and they build up, and all of them building up to a point, which then leads to an airplane crash. And so that's basically what happened in this passage. And uh, my personal feeling is that this passage wasn't as interesting as the ones from before, uh, but and I think that's only because he hasn't really made his point yet. He's still arguing that traditional, the cultural aspect that links success and a person's outcome, the cultural heritage. So he's still in the process of making that argument, and he hasn't concluded that. And I think it's because of that, because the conclusion hasn't come. So I'm not completely satisfied yet, and that's why I'm not as uh, as satiated from this passage as I would be, as I was from other passages. But this makes me even more curious to how he's gonna finally conclude this argument, and how this argument is gonna connect with his next possible argument, and so that's going to be interesting, and I hope it happens soon, because I don't like waiting too much. But let's see how it is.